Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Freedom Variant Podcast. This is episode number 6. And today I don't have a guest, so this is going to be a much shorter episode. And it's just some thoughts that I had um, going off of the theme that seems to be being created here on the podcast. If you notice, episode number 5, we really got into metaphysical thoughts and everything, but the underlying thing there is how humans can lose their ability to have rational, logical thought. And then when we go back to episode number 4, where I'm speaking to firefighter Rob Fox, that same theme came up again. And then when you go back to episode 3, where it's a solo cast of, and I'm just sharing my thoughts about, rising up, defying the narrative, and defying this omnipresent group of people that are trying to make logic and sound reasoning like the enemy. Again, there's the theme right there. This is a theme. So we're really talking about psychological stuff. As an individually, how we behave is one thing, and then as a group is another thing. And there is a thing called group psychology, how people behave in groups. And this goes way back. Anybody who's ever tried to sway groups of people into thinking alike to get power, right? To get the vote, to get money, whatever. They use psychology on those groups, herd mentality, psychology, propaganda. They use words as clever little ways to tweak the entire group and make them all act as one unit, right? And what's happening there is they're taking advantage of something that we have in our own neural networking within us, the networking in us, but how we network with others around us. And essentially, the group has this like little response system within it. Okay. And we have this need as humans to network, be part of a group, be part of something bigger than us. And in episode 5, my guest, Andrew Emsley, gets into the concept of identity. What's your identity? Where do we get our identity from? And when you're getting your identity from someone who wants you to think a certain way, and then you connect your identity to those thoughts, you wind up getting into trouble, and you get into a thing called cognitive dissonance, because anything that goes against the information that you are getting is a direct attack on your own identity. So in groups, we're finding identity with each other, say fighting a virus that's scaring the shit out of everybody. So you're scared, I'm scared, we're all scared, and they're telling us to be scared. And the more scared we get, the less rational thought, less logic thought we have. And this cognitive dissonance just keeps taking over. So today's podcast, I just want to tell you a story that happened with me when I was in school, and talking about rational thought and everything. One of my favorite things to do is to keep pointing out that following the herd is not good. Following the herd is safe, but it's not good for you. Being the black sheep is what you want to be. You know how they always say, "Oh, what are you, the black sheep? You got to be different than everybody else." That's a compliment, and that's what everybody should be striving to hear. They should all be striving to hear, "Hey, you're the black sheep." And I was the black sheep Well, I've been everywhere I go. I'm the black sheep. And I love it. I would get a tattoo right here on my arm of a black sheep if it wouldn't look stupid. But anyway, so there's this podcast I listen to called the Warrior Priest Podcast. It's so good. All right. He's a spiritual guy. He's a pastor. He's an MMA fighter, and he always delivers on understanding strength and manhood and manliness and family morals, values. I'm still learning about him, but the Warrior Priest is awesome, and you should check it out. And the latest episode is episode 78. It's called the Midweek Debrief: A Disaster of Ignorance, and he gets into compulsory public schooling, which is nowadays is also called state-run school, and that's what it is. The state runs the school. He reads something from somebody else, and it's brilliant. And boy, having gone through the public school system, and now I have a kid who's in the public school system, and I'm hearing this stuff. And again, I don't want to get too off track here, but I've got a whole lifetime of questioning authority and questioning the narrative. And that's thanks to my parents, who are both school teachers. And they both taught me to question everything and don't trust anybody. And man, that has served me well. Yes, I'm always skeptical of the narrative. And probably I've been skeptical of well-placed and well-thought-out narratives. And, people might have thought, hey, Fred's out of control, but that's few and far between. So when I was listening to the Warrior Priest podcast, it reminded me of some things that happened in my life growing up. And it took me a while to realize who and what I was when I was coming up through the school system, because there was a period during and shortly after school where I really thought I was just a terrible student, and I just screwed up my life almost because I didn't follow the system one bit, man. And it brought so much hell to me in the process. And it was literally, my school career was almost a fight every day. Like I grew up like that. So I think that's where a lot of it, I got my my desire to fight against things. The bigger and scarier it is, the more I want to fight it. And I'm not really talking about firefighting. I don't think that, maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I'm talking more, identity, fighting for your identity, fighting for who you are, and recognizing things that swallow up your identity and make you become somebody else. Like this blob that just comes. There's this old horror movie. It was corny as hell. It's called The Blob. The guy started off like the size of a golf ball. And the more stuff it touched, it consumed it. It got bigger and bigger. And at one point, it was so big, it was swallowing up entire buildings. And it was just blobbing along, rolling or blobbing, whatever they do. And it was just consuming everything. And at the end, I think they froze it. And I'm not even sure if that really did anything to it. But there's this blob out there, and it will consume you, especially if you're the black sheep. So you gotta recognize it. And everybody thinks you're crazy because you're railing against some nice people that have good intentions. And why are you giving them such a hard time? Why can't you just do what you're told? Why do you gotta question everything? Why do you gotta put them on the spot? Why do you gotta, and I didn't know that's what I was doing. Okay. And I was the wise ass. I was the punk wise ass that couldn't keep his mouth shut, that always had to question everything. And I didn't realize what I was doing. I wouldn't have done that back then if I knew what I knew now. What I was doing was I was putting the teacher on the spot all the time. All right. Sometimes I made myself just look foolish because I was still ignorant and naive. But sometimes I had some real moments of clarity, and I don't know where they were coming from, because I was just a young metalhead punk kid with a Slayer shirt on, like long hair. And yet I I had this thing going on where would almost hear and detect bullshit and want to just jump out right away and grab it by its throat and kill it right there, because it seemed dangerous to me, and I don't know where that was coming from. So one of the stories that happened was, I was always a bad student, just got bad grades, you know. I just was not interested. So one day I wrote an A paper, an A, and I knew it was good because I enjoyed writing it. I was into it from the minute it was assigned to me to the minute I turned it in. I felt like I was doing the best thing I could ever do with my life right there on that moment. Like I was so in the moment with it. And it was fantastic. And it was in health class of all things, and it was a sort of a free writing kind of thing where we got to kind of discuss in our paper what we wanted to. And what I ended up throwing this paper away, and I'll explain why in a second. So I don't really remember much of what I wrote. It was so long ago. But it had to do with your inner strength and your abilities that you pretty much don't know you have until you actually try something. And I remember that much. And because I still remember that, that's always been a theme in my life. And I always tell people, like, when I see people saying they can't do something, I'm like, no, man, you don't know what you're talking about. You could do a lot. So anyway, this teacher, she taught health, but she also taught math. She taught a couple different subjects. You know, college educated woman, very smart, right? But she knew me. You know, I did okay. I did pretty good in health class. I was interested in that stuff. But I had her in another class, and it was barely made D's. I think she gave me D's just to keep me moving along through the system. Seriously, I should have been an F student for the most part. I just did not give any thought whatsoever. I did not find it important. People would tell me this is important. I'd say, okay, you're right, it's important. And then I try and I go, nah, it's just not important enough. I'm not doing this. So she puts an A on my paper. Now, wouldn't it have been great when she hands it back? There's my work. I even wrote really slow with my free hand just to make sure that everything, I was into this. This was my thing, man. And what if she handed it to me and it was just a nice A in red? So it's nice popping out. And there's my paper written in black ink. Boom. Crisp white paper. How awesome would that be? And then I'd go home and I show my parents. My parents would go, wow. They would read it and go, wow, this is amazing. Frame this. And this is your thing. Stay with this. Keep doing this. Well, that's not what happened. What happened was the teacher wrote the A, and then she continued to write with that red marker all over the front of my paper. And it was like a backhanded, like, hey, good job writing this. Too bad you always have to take the rocky road. That's how it started. You know, great job with writing this, but too bad you always have to take the rocky road. And then there was more after that. And I don't even remember what it was because my blood started boiling and I could feel my blood pressure. And here I am, I'm a kid, I'm in high school. And I'm like, steam shooting out of my ears. And I'm reading with this paragraph completely in red, completely destroyed my work. She didn't destroy the work I did. The work I did was great, but she destroyed that piece of work by continuing to tell me that I make bad choices. And if I just made better choices, things would go so much better for me. Because look, you could clearly see you have a brain and you could use it. So why don't you start doing that? She punished me, you know. I couldn't take that home to show my parents because all of that shit she wrote, my parents would read that and go, what are you doing in school that she's writing that, right? And it just pissed me off. I just crumpled it up and threw it away. And that always stuck with me. You want to talk about teachers, right? Like, I love teachers. I'm married to one. My parents were both teachers. I have tons of friends that are teachers. They're great. They teach. But if any time a teacher does something like that to a student, you got to think about the impact that that's going to cause. All that did was entrench me. You know, I knew right there. I said, I got no friends around here. These people aren't for me. Okay, they're all against me. I was young, man. So I just stereotyped the whole thing. Even 75% of the students I went to school with, I put in that same category because all I saw was sheep, you know? And that was always an interesting thing for me. I realize now it shaped who I am now. And I don't look back on that with regret. I look back on that as a life lesson of the way institutions are and people are and how the individual can get chewed up and spit out the other side. And then in the Warrior Priest podcast, you know, like I said, it's a really good episode. Just go listen to it and then you'll know what I'm talking about. He gets all into it. So then I'm listening to him and I'm thinking about rational thought. So like I indicated earlier, I was a rough, rabble rousing, black sheep, no good kid, punker. I was actually called a punk a couple of times. And I was like, dude, I mean, punk rock is cool, but I'm more of a metalhead. So get it right. One of the things that I would do in school, and again, I mentioned this earlier, I wouldn't have done it if I knew what I was doing. But when you question, so a lot of the times it would be a question from somewhere else in the classroom. Another student would say, hey, what's this or what's that? And then the teacher would give an answer. And I was like, I would be sitting there listening to it and something didn't make sense. Like the answer seemed missing something. And again, just in high school, so I don't know enough yet. So I was dangerous, you know, I was starting to get a grip on rational thought, I think was going on there. And when I heard irrational stuff, you know, we're not talking about math here. All right. Math is pretty basic, right? It's A plus B equals C, end of story. I'm talking about other things, history class. You know, I can't think of any of the social studies. So here's what would occur. The teacher would give an answer and I would think about that. And I would say, and in my head, I would go, okay, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. I raise my hand and I would say, if that's true what you're saying, teacher, then if that was true, wouldn't then that lead to A or B or C or all three of these things then occurring after that? And they would look at me. I would say, well, it would become sort of like a mysterious chicken before the egg kind of thing. If I could make myself clear, I'm just kind of stumbling through this to try to explain it. If you could bear with me, sorry, but let's just say we were talking about a certain subject that led to some need for clarity. And the student would ask, well, why why did they do this? The teacher would answer based upon pretty much what they know, but also what's being taught in the curriculum. And I would think to myself, okay, that doesn't make sense, because if that was true, then further downstream, we would see this happening or this happening. And because we don't see this or this happening, then that can't be true, because one would lead to the other. So kind of like reverse engineering the whole thing, right? Using my imagination and rational thought and logic. So the way it would come off to the teacher would be, I'm just being a wise ass, you know? Oh, just question. Because the teacher's like, now it's like, oh, this kid is an asshole. Like, why are you challenging me? Like, why are you putting me on the spot? I'm just trying to teach, and you're stopping the class. And it came off as that, because again, I thought I was getting them, you know? I was getting them with a good shot, like, aha, I got you. You're not as smart as you think you are. But that's because I had a chip on my shoulder because of things like the paper with the A and the red writing on it. You know, stuff like that caused me to be more antagonistic and not understanding the psychology of people, and respecting somebody who's older than me, you know. And I came off as a wise ass punk, all my fault. But what I was really doing was I was learning to rationalize things. And, you know, my favorite comedian ever is George Carlin. And he always talked about questioning authority. And in fact, I can't remember which comedy run he was on, if it was one of the ones he did in the 90s where he was just really getting really in sync with what he was doing. I think it was about the 90s. So he would basically say, like, everything is bullshit. Everything they teach you is bullshit. Everything the government tells you is bullshit. He would get down to the family structure, and he would say, your parents are bullshitting you, and the kids are bullshitting the parents. And then he summed the whole thing up with, America is the great land of bullshit. Bullshit is the glue that helps keep us together. Funny and yet very true, right? And I think that's why I like the guy. That's why I like George Carlin, because he would talk about that stuff. If he was alive right now and I could have a cup of coffee with him, I'd be asking him questions and I'd be riffing with him about that subject right there. Because I look around this entire world, I look around this country, and I see a lot of BSing going on all the time. Everybody likes to BS each other, you know? Guy walks in with his Dunkin' Donuts coffee 10 minutes late for work. Nice big hot cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And the other guy says, oh, you had enough time to stop and get a cup of coffee. You couldn't just come here and let me get out of here on time. We got a coffee sitting right there. And the guy says, oh, no, it wasn't that, what, it's right down the road. I overslept, and, I like Dunkin' Donuts. Oh, what's the big deal? You know what I mean? Like, a person can't just say, oh, wow, you're right. I never thought of it. Dude, I'm such an idiot. You're right. I made you late for wherever you got to go because of thinking selfishly about myself. Nobody ever owns up to anything. I've done it. I mean, I've been put on the spot before, and I would say, try to give some excuses, and everybody just sit there like, man, making up excuses. You're just an a-hole. And then after a while, I just learned, don't do that anymore. Everybody knows when you're making an excuse, and in fact, just own up to it. Like, yeah, you're right, man. I screwed up. And I'm not gonna promise I'm not gonna do it again. I don't even know. I don't even trust if but I will work on it. So that's it. Just riffing off of the whole thing about logic and where it's all coming from and where it's all going. And I think that's a good topic for this podcast to continue to trend on for a while in respects to what other material people are putting out there. You know, again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a politician. I'm just a dude who's a fireman who does fitness coaching, who loves reading books about history, and I love psychology, all the stuff that me and Andrew Emsley from episode number 5 talked about. Those are all things in my wheelhouse. I don't go to school for that stuff. And I know right away, if you don't have a degree to back up anything you say, well, then it's all, you know, for not, you know, we can't listen to you. You don't have a degree. And, you know, I'm being facetious when I say that, being a wise ass, because how many people have degrees out there that don't seem to know shit? And, you know, they get all this praise and everything. Oh, you got, you know, this degree and that degree. Hey, look, I'm in the fire service. We get certificates for training in this and training in that. I got a stack of certificates up in my office that, I mean, I don't even remember taking half of these classes. And if anybody from the department is listening right now, especially if it's chief or whatever, take this with a grain of salt, please. But it's like, I don't remember what I learned, but I got a certificate. And if somebody asks, I'm like, yeah, I'm certified. Okay, well then you're the guy, go. And it's like, whew, can I get like 15 minutes to read up on what I'm about to do? It's whether or not you want to learn this stuff. If you want to learn about life, the best way to learn about life is to follow your heart and your mind. And at the same time, like, just because somebody's telling you, well, you need to learn this, if you're not into it, you're only going to half-ass learn it. You're not going to retain anything. But if you're into it, and that's what you want, like in the fire service, you want people that just want to be there. They want to be in the emergency. They want to be helping people out. And they're like, oh, I have to learn this and I have to learn about that and I have to learn about that. Okay, if that's going to help me just do better, yeah, I'm 100% totally into this. I want to learn. That's what you want. And that's what you want in school. And I understand school is basics, like let's learn how to read and write and all that stuff before we start getting fancy, like, hey, we're going to let kids just have this free time. We're going to put them in, we're going to let them wander around in the woods and just inquisitively ask questions. Like, that's all cool and all. I get it. There has to be a compromise. Like, kids got to learn how to write words and understand what they're writing. And, you know, but if kids just continue to be, crushed under this wheel of conformity, I believe you're just going to create what we have. I mean, this is what we have. This, you know, I went through the whole public school system. I was born in the 70s. We have people who just blindly follow what they're told. They're easily swayed one direction or another because they're not taught how to use critical thinking, logic and stuff. And, you know, I guess maybe that's one of the reasons why I became a firefighter, because you got to use, you know, you don't get emotional in an emergency. You get logical. You don't get loud. You speak steadily and evenly and sternly. You keep your wits about you. Okay. This might be an emergency, but I'm not going to act like it's an emergency. I'm going to use logic and I'm going to think about what we're going to do. I'm going to think about how to do it, where it's going to go, what are the difficulties we have to face, what is the information I need to convey to either the group I'm working with or the people we're trying to help or whatever. You know, what resources do we need? We don't have time to mess around with you know, emotional thought processes. Okay. And this is what I've been doing for the past 18 years of my life. And I've been trying to, and for 10 years, I was working to get on the fire department. And I've always been into like military stuff and, you know, just that's the way my brain works. I disseminate all the bullshit, get rid of the noise, the white noise, and all the scattered thoughts, and just what's logical here. And if you don't have enough information to make a decision, then you use your imagination and you kind of like extrapolate out, okay, well, we need this as a result. We need something that looks like this as a result to equal good job, well done. And then you could reverse engineer back to your current position, and you could fill in those blanks. Well, if we want something that looks like this as an end result, then we need to find the steps that get there. We can reverse engineer that. And like I said earlier, when I was in school, that's what I was doing a lot of times. Just really thinking out, like, don't, you're channeling a thought, you're giving an answer, and it's in this box, and then that's it. That's your answer. Stop asking questions. And I don't think that's good for kids. And I think that's always been what my problem was, if you want to call it a problem. For me, I feel I treat it as a gift, and I'm happy that I'm able to do what I do. And the only emotional response I get in all of this nowadays with what's going on in the world is I get very melancholy, and I get quiet. And the reason why is because I feel like the human race deserves better. I think, everybody we all deserve better than this. And, I think in the struggle on this planet, just to be somebody and do something that's special, we've become misguided, and we've allowed the government to easily herd us into this thought box. Here's your answer today. Here's your answer right here today. And that's what you're going with today. And then tomorrow people start realizing, well, that answer really wasn't good enough. I'm starting to think a little bit. I'm starting to use my brain a little bit. And then before people could think too much, they give you another box, another answer for you to put your blinders on and focus on that day. And then they keep doing that every day. And as in the Warrior Priest podcast, he points out that we get focused on today. We don't really think about the past. We don't really think enough about the future, and everything is just today. So once today is over, it's a new day. Well, now that day is now in your past. It doesn't matter. And that's what we see, this cognitive dissonance, where, they're saying that the vaccine, everybody still has to get the vaccine. Oh my God, you can't travel without it. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't go to a restaurant. And then people are like, yeah, but you said that if you had the vaccine, you could still spread it and you could still get it. So why is it so important to get this vaccine? And then they say, well, because you won't have to go to the hospital. And then, okay, that works today. And then the next day people start going, but a lot of people in the hospital got the vaccine. Well, you got to get the vaccine because, if you don't get it, you can't travel. Yeah, we just went down this road, and it's just this crazy circle going around and around, and people's brains are just, they're just exploding, and they can't develop any rational thought because they're always being triggered into emotional, fear. So that's it, guys. Thought I'd share that one with you. Do me a favor. Please follow the podcast on Rumble and follow on Instagram at The Freedom Variant. I'm also over on Telegram under the same name. You can also look under Fred Moore, because I assume eventually the censorship thing is going to get so bad that you won't even see the Freedom Variant on Instagram anymore. They're starting to clamp down harder on what they call misinformation. So support podcasts like this. If you don't like my podcast, that's fine. Support somebody who's speaking the truth. Another one out there is Ivory Hecker. She's a legit journalist. She worked for Fox, no longer does. She now works for herself. She has a website, ivoryhecker.com. I joined for $4.99 a month. Why? Because she's an independent journalist. She will report the truth. She has no masters to tell her what she can and cannot say. And we need more of that in our society now more than ever. And paying $4.99 a month for top-notch journalism like that, so I know that I'm getting pure news, unbiased news, is important to me. With the Freedom Variant, you get it for free, but you also get a whole bunch of crazy talk involved with it too, because I'm not a professional like Ivory Hecker is. So that being said, you guys do what you got to do to keep freedom and liberty alive, but make sure you do something, because taking no action is not the answer. Get activated, get out there and support something. This is serious times we're in, and we need people of action. Thank you once again. As always, I'm Fred Moore. See you at the next podcast.